I think we need to have a little talk about the NFC West.
Here is McCaffrey, right side, breaks a tackle, good shifty move, gets that, still going! McCaffrey's gonna scoop! Been physical as Goff has been sharp, but this is intercepted by Tariq Woolen, and he's gonna take it back inside for a Seahawk touchdown!
2nd and 10, Mayfield to the end zone to Jefferson, is that possible?
Blitz is on, down the middle, he's got the wide open Hopkins with a spinning broken tackle, taking it to the end zone.
The NFC West is a very interesting division. In my opinion, it's one of the biggest disparities in quality of teams within the division. You have teams like the 49ers, who are Super Bowl contenders, number 2 seed in the NFC, and then you have a team in the Arizona Cardinals who a lot of people expect to be picking in the top 2 or 3 of next year's draft. But despite it being kind of a variance of quality between the top and the bottom, I think there is a good competition brewing at the top of the NFC West. So in this video, we're going to talk about the NFC West in both the micro in each team and as the macro of the division as a whole. But before we get into that, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. I really would appreciate it, and it will let you know when I make more videos, more bangers, so that you can make sure to watch those as well. But all right, let's go ahead and get into the NFC West. So starting off with the San Francisco 49ers, aka the California Girls. There's a lot of really good things to like about this team. And as a avid prayer on the downfall of the San Francisco 49ers, it pains me to list all of the good things about their team. Right now, they have a phenomenal roster. Guys like Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, yada, 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 yada. I don't need to inflate the Niners' ego anymore. Really good roster. And to pair with that, they have one of the best coaches in the entire NFL, and Kyle Shanahan. Spoiler alert for a few videos ago, but I did have him ranked as my 3rd head coach in the NFL, the 3rd best coach in the NFL. So they're matching a great roster with a great coach. That's normally a pretty scary recipe. But in the case of the 49ers specifically, they are missing, or they are lacking at the most important spot in all of the game, and that's quarterback. And they have been for quite a few years, I'd say. Jimmy Garoppolo was kind of the man under center for many years, and that era has passed. And now, we're looking at a quarterback room of Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, and Sam Darnold. And, talking about Brock Purdy, yes, he was good in the fact that, he won all of his starts. The games that he started and finished, he won every game last year, and I thought, his decision-making was pretty good, and he got rid of the ball quickly. I'm not super terrified of the talent of Brock Purdy. I think a lot of it was just kind of a scheme fit. I think a lot of it was Shanahan masking the fact that Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. Obviously, it's still good that Purdy came in and was able to win those games. It took some balls, so I do commend him for that. But I don't necessarily see him as one of the most gifted quarterbacks in the entire NFL. But for what it's worth, some guys are very gifted, but they can't run the scheme. They can't, run the offense the way it's intended to run. And Purdy did that. Purdy did that for the 49ers last year. Unfortunately, as I'm sure all of you guys know, he did, have a really bad elbow injury in the NFC Championship game, and that's going to cause him to miss a significant amount of time. I believe he ended up having, Tommy John surgery, which is a surgery normally given to pitchers in Major League Baseball. And the recovery time is kind of a question mark at this point. Will he ever get back to 100%? His arm strength wasn't, good to begin with. So will this affect it to a dramatic degree? Will he be back and ready to go, week 1 or week 2? Will it kind of linger? We don't know. So there's a big question mark there with Brock Purdy and his elbow injury. Again, another big question mark is Trey Lance, former number 3 overall pick. He just hasn't been able to get it going yet. I'm not even going to call him a bust. I think that, when he's played, the results have just been inconclusive. You can't say that he sucks. You can't say that he's great. They're just a bit inconclusive. But unfortunately, didn't play much his rookie year. Broke his ankle last year against Seattle week 2. And, there are some reports. The validity of these reports, I will let you decide. But there are some reports that say that the 49ers have been less than impressed with Trey Lance in practice, in, the meeting rooms and everything like that. So Trey Lance is a bit of a question mark. So 49ers, they have a great roster. They have a great coach. I think their owner's good. I like their GM, John Lynch. It's just the quarterback. That's such a question mark for them. But I do expect the 49ers to, still be pretty good. Another thing that was lackluster about the 49ers was their draft. They didn't have a first or a second rounder. And with, their first couple of picks they took, Cameron Latu, a tight end who was backup to their All-Pro tight end, and then they took a kicker, when they had Robbie Gould employed for the last few years. So I wasn't totally impressed with their draft. I didn't think that they necessarily made their team much better. Looking at their schedule, obviously they have to play the NFC West twice, so that's 6 games. They also have to play at home versus the Cowboys, versus the Bengals, versus the Jaguars, and versus the Ravens. Pretty lucky to get all those teams at home. Those are some pretty tough games. And then the big game that they're going to have to go away for is going to be at Philly, a rematch of that NFC Championship game. I think the 49ers maybe take a little bit of a step down this year than they did last year. I doubt all of those guys are all pros. Once again, like I mentioned, Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, etc., right? But I think that they're still a really solid team. They're very well built. They're going to be well coached under Kyle Shanahan. I really doubt that the wheels completely fall off. And even if their quarterback play is suboptimal, I don't think that will affect them so much. So I have them going 11-6, and I have them competing for the top of the NFC West. But I will not say if I have them winning the NFC West just yet. Next, we have my favorite team, the Seattle Seahawks, and I think what is the most interesting team in the NFC West. The Seahawks are coming off a year last year that surprised pretty much everybody, going 9-8, going to the playoffs, losing to the aforementioned 49ers. And I think, obviously, I covered a lot of this in my Russell Wilson video, which a lot of you guys watched. The fact of Geno Smith and Russell Wilson being on it and all the draft capital, et cetera, et cetera. But I will mention that the Seahawks have gotten a lot better in the last couple of years. They've had an infusion of young talent. Just in this draft class alone, they've gotten, in my opinion, the best corner. They've gotten the best receiver in the draft. They also got, a couple really good offensive linemen, some defensive linemen, some edge rushers. They have really stocked up in this offseason, right? They also signed, they got Bobby Wagner back. If you guys can see the Bobby Wagner jersey back there, that's my boy. Bobby Wagner's back to lead the middle of the field, and obviously he's not what he was, but I think at the end of the day, he's going to be a great leader. The Seahawks, the reason they're so interesting is because they are, I think the best word to describe it would be like raw. They're a raw team. They're young. They're inexperienced. This is not close to the bunch that was winning playoff games every year with the Legion of Boom era. This is a new era, right? And there's a lot of guys that could be high impact guys like Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams. I think Tariq Woolen can repeat his dominant rookie year performance, and I think the biggest question mark though is, can Geno Smith prove that he's a franchise guy? Was last year a one-hit wonder, or is he a franchise guy? He signed that 3-year extension with Seattle, and it's really going to depend. The success of the Seahawks is really going to depend on whether Geno Smith is a fraud or not, essentially. But assuming he's good, and assuming that the rookies, linearly get better, I think the Seahawks are going to be a improved team. Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, I think, held it down at tackle last year. They're going to have another year. Tariq Woolen, like I mentioned, was one of the league's best corners. Now he gets Devin Witherspoon on the other side of him. Kenneth Walker was great. Now he has Zach Charbonnet to take some of the pressure off of him and keep his legs fresher. I think that the Seahawks players that they had last year, who were rookies, are going to get better. Also, let's not forget about like Boye Mafe. I think he played an underrated role last year, and I think he's going to get better this year. And then the rookies they had this year. So the Seahawks have really had an infusion of young talent. And, Pete is still Pete. I still have him as a top 10 coach in the NFL. I think he's still really good. John Schneider is one of the best GMs in the NFL. You can never discount the home field advantage aspect of, playing at Lumen Field in Seattle. It's one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. And then, looking at their opponents, I think that they do kind of have a tough schedule, unfortunately. Obviously, they have to play the NFC West twice. That's a given. And then they have to play in Seattle against the Browns, against the Eagles, which that is a break. If we're going to beat the Eagles, it definitely wasn't going to be in Philly. So Seattle at least gives us a chance. In Seattle against the Steelers. And then we have to go to Detroit to play the Lions, Cincinnati to play the Bengals. That's going to be a tough game. To the Ravens, and then to Dallas. That Dallas game is a Thursday night game as well. So to answer the question in the title of the video, and to answer the question in most people's minds, has Seattle done enough to catch the 49ers? My answer, no. They're just a little bit behind. And I think, the 49ers are an already established group of all pros who will pretty much have every position filled maybe except for that quarterback spot. Maybe even the quarterback spot if Purdy can capture what he had last year. And again, I think Kyle Shanahan is one of the top 3 or 4 head coaches in the NFL. The Seahawks are a little bit behind because their players, while they have potential to be fantastic, they're not there yet, right? They are not to that level yet. Unless Devin Witherspoon comes in as fucking phenomenal and JSN is, wide receiver 1 right away and Derek Hall is 10 sacks, it's probably not going to happen. And that is totally okay. The Seahawks went into a rebuild mode the second they traded Russell Wilson. So for it to be already where it's at is way ahead of schedule. This is a plan in motion to make the Seahawks perennial contenders for years. So maybe not in the year 2023 will they regain the NFC West and be legitimate Super Bowl contenders, but I think in 2024 and beyond, they are going to have their opportunity to shine both in the NFC and in, the grand scheme of the NFL, being one of the best teams. But again, Geno Smith needs to prove that he is legit. He needs to prove that he is who the contract says that he is. If they can do that, I think that they could become one of the league's best team in a few years. I have them going 10-7. I do have them making the playoffs. Wouldn't be surprised if they won a playoff game, but I kind of doubt they make it to the NFC Championship game or later. I'd love it if they did. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of see them as a 0-1 win playoff team, and a team that is going to continually get better as the years progress. So that's what I have for the Seahawks. Now getting to kind of the 2 bottom feeders in the division, unfortunately. Let's talk about the Rams.
Mid!
First and foremost, the Rams are never out of it when they have Sean McVay. Again, I think the NFC West is possibly the best coached division in the NFL. We have 3 legitimate top 10 coaches and Jonathan Gannon, in the NFC West. Sean McVay is fucking legit. I don't need to tell you that. The Rams, for what it's worth, they won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Now, they've had a lot of key departures since then. Obviously, Von Miller's gone, Odell Beckham's gone, Andrew Whitworth's gone, Jalen Ramsey's gone. So the Rams are not the Rams that they were a few years ago. However, they still have some guys, right? Matthew Stafford is still a good quarterback. Hopefully, the elbow injury and hopefully, some of the other stuff that was going on, he can stay on the field and he can stay healthy and he can finish out his career the right way. Cooper Kupp, also coming off of a season-ending injury last year. Hopefully he can regain, his status as a legitimate wide receiver 1 in the NFL. And then, additionally, Aaron Donald dealt with some stuff last year. He's going to come back and he's going to be Aaron Donald. Now, this Rams team, they sold their soul for that Super Bowl, and now they're paying the price for it. And their team is kind of deconstructing itself. There's a lot of holes on this team, and they are not, again, the caliber of team that they were a few years ago. But I think they still got some talent. They have a lot of young players. I mean, they took 14 players in the draft this year. I mean, at least a few of those have to be some solid players, right? And I think, for the most part, the Rams are going to be a well-coached team. I have them going 7-10, missing the playoffs, and they are, trying to kind of pick up the pieces after that Super Bowl run, unfortunately. And then finally concluding with the actual bottom feeder in the division, that's the Arizona Cardinals.
And I've got to say, in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
I really don't think anybody expects Arizona to compete this year. Kyler Murray is going to miss a significant portion of the year, still recovering from that ACL he tore last year against the 49ers. New coach, Jonathan Gannon. I've been vocal about the fact that I'm not a fan of him, but even putting that to the side, most coaches aren't successful in their first year, and especially a team like Arizona, which is in such a deep rebuild. I really doubt that the Arizona Cardinals win many games in their first year. Again, this is really all about building for the future, rebuilding. They kind of tore it all down. I wouldn't be surprised if DeAndre Hopkins and Budda Baker get traded at some point during the year. Just focus on the young guys, right? Paris Johnson, he's going to be a cornerstone for your franchise for many years, ideally. If you have, a solid left tackle, that's going to be great. And then, when Kyler comes back, give him some reps maybe this year, depending on when he comes back. You guys, again, won't be pushing for the playoffs. So, but they're rebuilding, and I don't think there's any shame in that. They need to do it this way. They got a new coach, new GM. They're going to probably have a top 3 or 4 pick next year, I would imagine. I think, a really good scenario is you either, get that number 1 pick and you trade it, or you get like the second or third pick and you take Marvin Harrison. And if you believe in Kyler Murray, then you can go with Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray to the moon. So, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the Cardinals. Everybody knows that they're kind of going to be ass next year, so I don't need to spend too much time on that. But I just want to say thank you guys for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Let me know your predictions for the NFC West down below. Very interested to hear what you guys have to say. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you guys in tomorrow's video. Peace out.